Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Denton. I'm making a video to introduce my class and how it runs this year. I know it's a little different than anything that you may have been part of before. Parents, your son and daughter are in my geometry class, and over 13 years of teaching, I've discovered that geometry is a course that students really struggle with, mainly due to pace of the course. It is an SOL class, so in May we'll have our state test, and there is a pace that we need to keep in order to cover all material. However, I have realized over the years that some students fly through the material and the teacher pace holds them back, while other students really struggle with the material and need help and more support along the way. Maybe that's due to study habits, maybe that's due to a lack of algebra skills, but whatever the case may be, I want to make sure that I'm doing my best to serve all students. So I've made this little video to explain how the class works and give you a little glimpse into what happens every day. I want to start with this. Over the summer and last spring, all the teachers in the geometry who teach geometry got together, and what we did is we laid out all 14 state standards. There are 14 things that the state thinks all geometry students need to know. And what you see here in this little bullseye is the 14 standards rearranged into levels of A, B, and C. What we decided are that these 6 standards here in the middle are the 6 main foundational pieces that students really need to know before you can learn anything else in the geometry curriculum. What you see here in teal in the B level are 4 standards that are really, really important to other classes. They build on the things in the C category, and they travel with students to other math courses. And then finally, what you see right here in the orange A level are geometry standards that are very isolated to a geometry class. They may not go to another class with students until the college level. So we've rearranged all 14 into foundational, building, and kind of like the cherry on top here. Well, then what I did is I took those 14 standards and I laid them out in more of a ladder format so I could figure out how I wanted to teach the course and what I wanted to do first, second, third, fourth, so on. So here you'll see a ladder that caps out at surface area and volume. These are the 6 standards that we really felt were foundational to geometry. And this is the order I'll be teaching on this year. We start down here at the green that says no SOL. There are several things that students really need to know from previous math classes that are isolated to geometry, all kinds of stuff that aren't really associated with an SOL, but are important to the course. The first SOL topic we'll be covering is parallel lines and transversals. And then we'll move on to coordinate geometry and so on. Once a student masters all 6 of these standards, they will reach this kind of cutoff bar where they are guaranteed a C for the course as long as they maintain these 6 standards. Then they'll jump over here to the B ladder and they'll start with logical reasoning and build their way up this ladder until they get to the graphs of circles. And here's another cutoff bar, and that will solidify a B for the course. And then they'll go through one final ladder that starts at constructions and builds its way through similar solids. And once that's completed, they'll have an A for the course. So these are the 14 standards laid out in a very sequential way where students are trying to climb each ladder to get to the next letter grade. The color coding and the percentages have to do with the SOL themselves. One of our fabulous teachers went through the SOL and looked at all these percentages. She discovered, for example, here that 8% of the questions every year come from right triangles, and 8% of the questions come from logical reasoning, and so on. So you can see how the SOL is dispersed throughout the standards. What I've also done is color coded for you. Everything in blue is considered strand 1 by the state. Everything in yellow is strand 2. Everything in pink is strand 3. For a student to pass the geometry SOL, they must get a certain score in each strand, as well as getting that magical 400 overall. So you can see that the majority of strand 3 is over here in the A category. So there's a lot of incentive for students to get through the A ladder so that they'll feel fully prepared for the SOL. Okay, if you have any questions about this, make a note, and maybe I'll answer your question in just a minute. Okay, so here's what it looks like day to day in my class. This was the first to-do list I gave students. It went along with this green non-SOL standard, and this is everything that students needed to accomplish to master this unit. I really want to look at how students access this material, and it's through something called Google Classroom. All students are signed into this, and parents should be signed into this too if you really want to see all the details that students. Here's my third period Google Classroom, and you'll just notice that it's just this running list of posts that have links, that have uploads, that have videos, all kinds of things here for students to access. On the left side here at the top are each of the categories of what we've been studying, so students can look up everything to do with segments by clicking here, and it will redistribute everything for segments. Well, I really want to look at this particular lesson. That way we kind of narrow it down a little. This lesson is called Problem Solving Algebra with Angle Pairs. I want to show you what the end is so you'll see how students build throughout the lesson. Here are problems that students would need to be able to master to complete this lesson. Here we've got 2 examples for you. You see there's a lot of algebra involved. I'm asking for students to solve for x as well as find an angle measure. So there's 3 layers here. Students need to know some geometry that came from a previous lesson. They need to be able to set up the algebra and solve for x. And then they need to come back to geometry to figure out what the angle measure is. So there are 3 layers of understanding to solve just one of these problems. And what I found along the way is if students struggle with any of the 3 layers, they cannot get the problem accomplished. They'll feel like they can't get that done. So on our list here, the quiz, once they get to the quiz, they really need to have completed all of these other aspects of the lesson. They need to go through an algebra readiness activity where maybe they're just doing equation solving, no geometry involved. Once Coach Holter, that's my assistant teacher, and once we decide that, yes, students are really good at equation solving, that's not going to be the thing that slows them down, then we'll move them on to completing the notes. This says they should watch the video and complete the notes page. Students also have the option of completing notes with me in class. Once they get the notes, which holds several examples, then they move on to some kind of practice activity. Some of this is online, some of this is just a worksheet. Here I've got a maze for them to do, something kind of fun and interactive. Then students will do something with the material. And this is just a place to have a practice quiz with a partner where they can discuss ideas and figure out their strengths and weaknesses before completing the real quiz. Sometimes this do activity is a hands-on activity. Sometimes it's a get up and move around the room activity. It really just depends on how I want to mix up the course. Actually, in this particular lesson, students could decide to use the practice quiz as the actual quiz if they felt ready. I really think students know if they are ready better than I would know just by looking at a piece of paper. So I give that ownership to them to decide if they're ready for the quiz or not. Once students complete all assignments, this at a level of mastery that's appropriate, then they move on to the next assignment, which would then be segments. And then they go through that part of the list. When all pieces are done, when all lessons are done, that they have successfully mastered this unit. that you're seeing. If you're looking at your student's grade in Parent Portal and you see that they have a C, then that means that student is on pace to complete these items for the year. 6 of the 14 items. A student who's had a B is on pace to complete those 6 items as well as these 4 more. And a student who's on pace for an A is on pace to complete the entire curriculum for the year. If you have any questions at any time, please email me. I look forward to talking about this with you. I know it's different. I know it's new. And I know there will be some bumps in the road as we go, but I'm also really looking forward to the challenge. And I'm really, really looking forward to watching students learn, which is the main thing. We don't want students moving forward if they're not prepared. And we want to put the learning ownership in their hands to prepare them for life outside of high school. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.